this is my Raider shield. Now, I made this just to look like something has been thrown together by somebody who has no idea of how to make a shield. And to be fair, that's how it's come out, because these holes would not protect against anything. So, last year I had some slight issues with recording. I'm not entirely sure what to describe it as, but I just couldn't. But I may as well go over the props that I made in that time. So, first thing I had to do to make this was to make the basic frame. Now, this framework is literally just plumbing pipe. I did originally plan to do some bending around the top here and the corners, but that didn't work out, so I just gave up on it. So those ones there are just cut at 45 degrees to either side, and the same there and on each corner. And these ones here are just straight cut pipes going across, and I drilled holes through them and secured them with cable ties. I know it sounds really primitive and silly, but the idea of a Raider shield is that it's rather primitive and stupid, so I'm not that bothered by that. Then I literally cable tied all that together. This mesh here is garden fencing, essentially. It's just plastic squares. It's made for like keeping things out of gardens. I wouldn't use metal chicken wire for it because, well, they don't let sharp metal objects in conventions. So I just got that, cut it to size. I cut it a little bit bigger so I could wrap up and over. As you can see there, I've wrapped it up and over. Then I've literally just secured it to the previous section, or to the bottom side from the wraparound, and then used bits of cable tie, or used cable ties to tie them on. And I've done a load of them all around. Now, when cutting cable ties, if you cut them straight across, if you cut them like that way across the cable tie, they come out quite sharp. So the rounded wire cutters I use, and they usually cut them rather blunt, but I still scratched my hand quite a bit on the back of this thing. But again, you learn to aim them away quite quickly. But this was also made in a rush before a convention for some Raider armour. Now, once I had all that on and had all the cable ties, I then had to make the street signs for the front of it. To do that, I went into Fallout and looked at the different varieties of street signs you had, the different designs, learning the colour schemes, everything else. Then once I decided on several signs that I wanted on my shield, I then just got EVA foam, and this is 5mm EVA foam. It's just standard grey stuff. And because this was made as a one-off thing, I didn't bother sealing it or anything, I just painted straight on. But I got that, cut it into shape, and then just, as you can see here, I just cable tied it. I did not care, I just cable tied them all on. Then the next phase was to get silver paint and paint it across the whole thing. This entire thing is undercoated in really bright silver. Now, if you've seen street signs out on the roads, they are really bright compared to anything else around them, and that's because they have a reflective backing in front of this actual text on the sign. And I wanted to recreate that effect so it would look far too shiny as it is here in all of that. That's not just the lighting, it shines like that in photographs as well. It actually works quite well, but having a solid silver base underneath will mean that the silver will reflect through whatever you paint on top. After that, I painted this just plain red, that plain green, and those just plain green on their own. And I had to spend days waiting for that to dry. Then painted the street signs on. They're not the best, as you can see, but every one of these is hand painted, and I literally just painted the text on. When I did that, I drew a line across. I drew lines for it to go into, and then drew little sections, and then painted each letter into each section, trying to keep it into block capitals. As you can see with my exit sign, I ran out of space. but otherwise these are just supposed to be damaged street signs. This edge here, which is supposed to look like torn metalwork, you can see there I didn't bother doing the rust effect all the way, so that's just standard EVA foam, but it works enough for photos. And doing that, I literally just got a pair of scissors and just cut. Generally, I picked a curve that I wanted to go to and just cut randomly in directions just to make it look damaged and torn, which worked out pretty well actually. And then after I did that and it had all dried, the cutting of that was before the painting. You don't cut after painting, that's horrible. But once all the paint had dried, I looked at it and it just looked brand new, because all of this was just plain green, all that was just plain red. It just looked like new signs. So I then had to age it, and aging in this case I used raw umber, I believe was the colour, and then I mixed that down with water until it was really thin, got a sponge, then ripped that sponge so it had a really odd texture or a really rough texture. Then once I'd done that, I got the mixture and put it into a tub and literally just dabbed it on. It's the best description I have. And I just tapped it on everywhere just to add the rust detailing, which is why it looks so dirty and generally wrecked. Then after that I was nearly done and I just needed to add something to hold it by. I just used some of the strapping that I use usually for armour pieces, like for attachment points for armour, and I just tied it on in the corners. This really is quite a simple build and it took me about a week, but the majority of that week was spent literally going, is this paint dry yet? I didn't really achieve anything, and yeah, just did a one up there, then back down, and this one here that then wraps around, and then it gives you a secure point in the center, and this one here is designed to be held like that, and it literally just tied off there and wrapped through one of the squares up here in the fencing, and in the end you end up with a chain link fence with signs stuck to it. Now, to be fair, if I was doing this again properly, I would, one, paint the back. That is all just plain EVA foam, and you can see where I was rushing and just really going quick, so you can see the paint. I've just tried to get some on there, but I've just got to remember, when I take it to cons, never show that to people. As long as this side's facing the camera, it looks good. And ultimately, half of what you do making props is making it look good, not actually being good. Because with people with big armor, when you see them, in photos, it does look really tough and strong and looks like actual metal. But, I mean, same as that, will look relatively metalish. But the second you see it in real life, it just does that. It just bends, cracks. But all you need to do is look good in pictures. But with the painting, I should mention that I did not underseal any of this, and it's just acrylic paint. The problem with acrylic paint is with loose bits like this, is that when you bend it, it'll snap. The paint will actually crack and start to fall off, and without proper sealing it just messes it all up a bit. But again, my friend wanted to make a shield wall at a con for a cool photo, so I went, yeah sure, I'll bring the shield. So I made one. Okay, that's it for my Raider shield. The rest of this costume, I literally just got some foam plates. I got like 5mm plates of foam, and I've got 2 leg plates and a chest on it and a big shoulder, and all I did was get the foam and cut spikes out and stick it on. It's basically, after that it's all painting. So sorry for not filming one at the time. I'll hopefully be getting back to doing these properly this year. And of course you missed the giant axe that I made. It's big. Okay, right. So hopefully if you want to make fake street signs, or at least something that looks like it, I'm hoping this video was helpful, and see you in another video. Bye!